أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Welcome to our fifth session on the Tafsir of Surah Naml. We had reached yesterday on the section of the discussion between Sulaiman alayhi salam and the ant, the queen ant. And then now we move on to the second section of the discussion of Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam. And this time it is about a very important dialogue between Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam and building up to the dialogue with the Queen of Sheba. So here, Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, in verse number 20 says, وَنَفَقَّدَ طَيْرًا فَقَالَ مَا لِيَ لَا أَرَى الْهُدْهُدَ أَمْ كَانَ مِنَ الْغَائِبِينَ. Says that he reviewed the birds. He looked at all of the birds, and then he said, why is it or how is it that I don't see the hoopoe, or is he one of the absent ones? So once Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam used to travel on the carpet, the birds used to form a row around him to keep shade. And due to the ray of sunlight which was coming onto him, he realized that Hudhud was not there, the hoopoe was not there. So what does he say? لُعَذِّبَنَّهُ عَذَابًا شَدِيدًا أَوْ لَأَذْهَبَنَّهُ أَوْ لَا يَأْتِيَنِي بِسُلْطَانٍ مُبِينٍ. I will punish him with a severe punishment, or I will execute him. I will slaughter him unless he brings a valid reason for his absence. ومكث غير بعيد فقال أحط بما لم تحط به وجئتك من سبأ بنبأ يقين. So he comes back after a short time. He had not gone far away. And he says, I've come to you from Sabah, which is a place in Yemen, with a sure news, بِنَبَأٍ يَقِينٍ. إِنِّي وَجَدْتُ امْرَأَةً تَمْلِكُهُمْ أَوْ وَأُوتِيَتْ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَلَهَا عَرْشٌ عَظِيمٌ. I saw that there is a woman who's ruling over them. There's a queen who's ruling over them. And she has a grand or a great throne. She has been given abundance and she has a mighty throne. So here Hudhud makes his case. He says, I've come to you with good news or with a strong or sure news which you don't know about. Why is it that Hudhud was the one who was in such big demand? Imam Musa ibn Jafar alayhi salatu wasalam, al-Qadim alayhi salatu wasalam, says, and this is narrated in Al-Kafi, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given Hudhud X-ray vision. So he can look onto the earth and see through the earth and see where water is available. So therefore, Sulaiman alayhi salam used to rely on Hudhud in order to get water. A similar reply in Tafsir Majma' al-Bayan is mentioned by Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam when Abu Hanifa asked him about this same point. That why is it that Hudhud the hoopoe was in such high demand. Who is this person? Who is this woman who's ruling over them? In Mullah Muhsin Faidh Kashani's Tafsir Safi, we read that this is Bilqis ibn Sharar, Sharahil. Now, as you know, many women have been mentioned in the Holy Quran. Only one of them has been mentioned by name, that is Maryam bint Imran, the mother of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, who has a surah named after. She's the only one who's mentioned by name in the Holy Quran. But of course, other women are also mentioned, and this is the Queen of Sheba, Bilqis ibn Sharahil, who is being referred to in this particular. What is this big news that he's bringing, O Hudhud? وجدتها وقومها يسجدون للشمس من دون الله وزينا لهم الشيطان أعمالهم فصدهم عن السبيل فهم لا يهتدون. I found her and her people worshipping the sun instead of Allah, and Shaitan made their deeds beautified, good to them, and thus they turned away from the right path. Now, this is, of course, related to the beginning of the surah. In the first session, we mentioned the ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, those who don't believe, their actions seem good to them, and they get deceived by the fact that the actions seem good to them. So here, same thing. They worship the sun instead of Allah, and their actions seem good to them. So they've turned away from the right path, and they don't go or they don't follow the right path. And what do they do? Allah yasjudu lillahi alladhi yakhrujun khab fi as-samawati wal ardi wa ya'lamu ma tukhfuna wa ma tu'linun. That they don't make sajda, they don't do sajda to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who brings forth which is heaven, hidden in the heavens and in the earth, and knows what you hide and knows what you make manifest. Allahu la ilaha illa huwa rabbul arshil azim. Allah, there's no God but He, who is the Lord of this grand or great arsh. Arsh here, of course, refers to power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not a physical place. Arsh is a reference to the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what does Sulaiman alayhi, hearing all of this, what does Sulaiman alayhi salam say? Does he say yes? Does he say no? No. What does he say? قَالَ سَنَنْظُرُ أَصْدَقْتَ أَمْ كُنْتَ مِنَ الْكَاذِبِينَ اذهب بكتابي هذا فألقي إليهم ثم تول عنهم فانظر ماذا يرجعون. Sulaiman alayhi salam, he doesn't confirm straight away, nor does he deny. He says, I want to see, or we will see, whether you have told the truth or you are lying. So it's the responsibility of every leader to find out and to know, and not to confirm. If you found out something, investigate. Find out, is it true, is it not? Then give your reaction. So what does he say? He says, take this, my letter, and go fly over them and hand it to them and see what they answer in written. So in Tafsir al-Qurmi, we read that the hoopoe, Hudhud, says to Sulaiman alayhi salam, she is in a very strong fort. I can't go inside. So he tells, Sulaiman tells hoopoe, the Hudhud, go towards the fort, fly over it, and drop my letter inside. So the first thing is that he reviews the birds. This is the beginning of where we started from, which was verse number 20. وَتَفَقَّدَ الطَّيْرَ فَقَالَ مَا لِي أَرَى الْهُدْهُدَ أَمْ كَانَ مِنَ الْغَائِبِينَ. He reviews the birds. This is a clear indication that Sulaiman alayhi salam is caring and concerned about every single creation in his kingdom, that even the absence of a bird is not ignored by him, and he asks and he's concerned and he wants to know why is it that the bird is missing. So two reasons have been mentioned, as we previously mentioned, that one was that the birds used to give shade to Sulaiman. The other is that the hoopoe was the one through which the water would be found. Now, the way or the message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that in the ilahi, in the godly system, which is organized and ordered and powerful, every movement, activity, action has to be under consideration because it might affect another person. And so even the presence and absence of a bird is not neglected. Sulaiman alayhi salam wants to know what's happening. Regarding the punishment, so Sulaiman said, I'm going to punish. Regarding the punishment, Mufassirin of Holy Quran mentioned that it would be separated from its partner, or its feathers would be pulled off, or it would be made to stay in the sun and not go underneath the shade, or it would be banished from the court of Sulaiman, or it would be put in the cage of the enemy. One point that we must note is that being kind to people who are subordinate to us is an Islamic and ethical principle. It's important for a person to be merciful, empathetic to the one who is subordinate, and not to judge that person in their absence. Sulaiman ﷺ says, I will give the punishment, I will slaughter him, unless he brings a clear reason. Unless he brings a reason for why he's absent. So there's no judging without absence. He's just threatening if the fault is proven. And then he showed that once the bird returned, he gave him the chance to reply, the chance to defend himself. So what did he say? He returned, he said, I've seen that which you have not seen, and I have come to you from Sabah, from Sheba, with a sure or a clear news. So Hupu knew that he had been absent without reason, therefore he had to explain himself, and he gave Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam this explanation. But it is important also to note that in the time of Sulaiman alayhi salam, who is the king and the prophet, the bird was openly able to say that I know something that you're not aware of. I've seen something that you haven't seen. So the hoopoe was not with Sulaiman alayhi salam the way that the men on the court flatter the kings, the tyrannical kings. And they flatter and make themselves low before they give some information. No. Caring about the fact that if the king gets offended, then we will be removed from the kingdom. But the hoopoe gives clearly his reasons why he's been absent and brings him some news that Sulaiman should. And of course, this is a great lesson that sometimes even the hoopoe can tell me something that is so key and important for me to know, even for someone like Sulaiman, who's been given so much knowledge by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about the prophecy. So when it comes to punishment, why is it that Sulaiman alayhi salam made this clear? that this punishment is supposed to be meant as a deterrent for other people. If people are aware that punishments are not severe for crimes, then crime will increase. Therefore, severe punishments are necessary for deterrence. It is imperative for a person to be deterred from committing those crimes. As far as judging in absence is concerned, that also is not allowed. It is imperative to wait for a person to return in his or her presence. Should the matter be discussed, they be given the chance to defend themselves and then to apply the punishment if necessary. Every crime has to have punishment which is proportionate to that crime. And everybody has to submit to reason, to knowledge, even if that reason is uttered by somebody who is insignificant. And there should be such freedom of speech in the society that even an ordinary person can tell the king that I know something that you don't know. And sometimes it is the ordinary people who have such information which even the greatest people of knowledge are unaware of. And in this society, there are so many things and so many people who are dependent on other people. And in this case, Sulaiman ibn Dawood, the prophet and the king, was dependent on the bird. Sulaiman ibn Dawood was dependent on the bird to tell him and give him the information about this. Then this story shows that the Queen of Sheba has an extraordinary understanding and leadership, that she was ruling over the people. The Hupu is of course surprised because he makes a point of saying that I found a woman ruling over them. But she has the capability, the knowledge, and she commands authority over the people over her people. And the final point, which is very important to reflect on, is that people have the same religion as their rulers. So whatever the rulers believe and whatever the rulers propagate, people also have those same beliefs. So he says, I found her and her people who were engaged in prostrating and doing sajda towards the sun. And of course, this is the key way in how the rulers distract their people from their own shortcomings by engaging people into shirk. And of course, the responsibility of the prophets is to take people out of shirk and introduce them towards Tawheed and the oneness of Allah Azza wa Jalla. We will see in the following verses how does Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam invite Queen of Sheba and her people towards Tawheed and shows the veracity of himself as a prophet of God as well. Inshallah ta'ala, join us tomorrow at the same time where we will continue this story and this surah, inshallah ta'ala. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.